In Zenless Zone Zero, Billy is the second agent players obtain, and yet many do not have a good understanding of his lore. In this video, we will explore the facts that we know, Billy's backstory with the Sons of Caledon, and his relationship with other characters to create a general timeline of events. Then we'll have a little fun at the end by doing some power scaling for our former champion. Hello, my name is Yojimbo Blade. I make a few Billy videos because I enjoy playing him, and I even wrote a detailed Reddit post about Billy's lore up to version 1.2. Now that we are in the end of 1.4, I feel pretty comfortable making this video, since I do not believe we will continue his story anytime soon. My reason for making this is twofold. One, I've seen a few shorts of Billy's lore filled with false information and unfounded speculation. This is not helpful if you want to learn more about Billy and the first things you read or hear are blatantly wrong. Granted, these errors make sense early on when we know very little, but we know enough now where many of these issues can be resolved. Coincidentally, as I was preparing this, a lot of people on Reddit have been making posts questioning how strong Billy is in lore, and it's funny to see how many people don't quite understand what we've been shown. This will hopefully show others what he is capable of, so we don't need to repeatedly explain these topics. Now, this video will be void of personal preferences, except for some fun at the very end. Any conclusions I come to are based off of information presented in the game, the narrative, and the story. This is not an explanation of what I want to believe, but what makes the most sense from a narrative and character writing perspective. So there are no crazy wild fan theories, and I won't waste your time with that here. However, I am aware that as the story progresses, more details will be revealed, and they may even specify dates and times later. Since we do not have that now, the timeline I am making is going to be loose to account for new information. The goal is not to be exact, it's to give people the best analysis of Billy's story based on current information. So instead of saying something like, Caesar is 24 years old, I will say Caesar is in her early to mid-20s. Of course, ZZZ could always do what Honkai did when they changed this timeline so that Pella graduated from college before she was born. That's just bad writing. How do you expect me to predict that? Going forward, I will abbreviate some faction names to keep things simple, since we have Caledon, the Caledonian biker gang. Yes, that is what Caesar calls it, and the Sons of Caledon. So not taking the time to specify which one I mean will only make things more confusing. So the Sons of Caledon will be called Sock. And in making this script, I realized I can make the cunning hares become chairs, and I thought this was funny. Also, the entire script will be posted onto Reddit if you would like to read it and for the sake of documentation and discussion, and in case you get tired of my voice or mic. YouTube is picky about allowing long comments, and Reddit is a better platform for discussion. I want others to be able to find this information if they ever decide to learn more about Billy. The link to the post will be in the description, and any errors I make will be addressed in the pinned comment. So, let's begin. Here are the facts. These are objective historical events or personal details, so any reliable analysis must account for them. Billy was found by Apon and his mentor in the Lost Tech ruins and is made with lost technology. We don't know what that is, so it's not important right now. Billy was acquired and named by the current leader of the gang at that time. I have to be this vague and you'll see why later. Billy has experienced a very traumatic incident that he is very quiet about. Billy was known as the Red Scarf and the undefeated champion for Sock, and was very famous. In the Motor League, the champion is the gang's strongest non-leader, whose goal is to represent the gang, settle physical disputes, and protect the honor and integrity of the gang. Leiter specifically calls Billy the Red Scarf. In Billy's final trust commission, a Hollow Raider boss who's never seen Billy recognizes his description only after the fight, but says, "Something's missing," which is the red scarf that Leiter now has. In the Tour de Inferno A data collection, The description for two aces reads, "While setting up the data piles, Lighter shared his history with Billy. It turns out that both of them were undefeated champions. Billy left Sock recently with his current outfit and 2 pistols. This is one I've seen too many people get wrong. He left recently, and I will go into more detail on this later. Also, his official page calls his high caliber pistols a gift from an old friend." Billy sometime later joined Chairs. Billy introduces Sock to the Chairs, and they are on friendly terms. Billy says he is tougher now than when he left Sock. Billy really likes the Starlight Nights, arcade games, and the actress Monica. Billy can taste and breathe. Those are the facts. Now let's get on to the analysis. In order to learn about Billy, we need to know more about Sock. So let's begin with Caledon. Caledon is Caesar's father, who was in charge of the Caledonian biker gang. He disappeared when Caesar was very young. This will be explained by the game in future events, as it's written in a way so that they can do the bit where, "Oh, he comes back! Oh my goodness! I can't believe it!" They don't say he's dead, which is a dead giveaway. And we really don't know much about his personality. After he disappeared, Big Daddy took over and became the leader of the Caledonian biker gang. Sometime later, there was a violent split in the Caledonian biker gang. Exactly why or what happened is unknown, but we know Caesar lost her left arm in the aftermath. As a result, the only known members of Sock include Big Daddy, Piper, Billy, and arguably Caesar, but it depends on if we want to say a kid was officially part of the gang. I do not have a screenshot of this, and I wish I did, but I remember Piper discussing about how thinking of this awful event still makes her feel very sad. We don't know when exactly the gang name changed to Sock. Based on how Caesar tells it, it makes the most sense if it happened soon before or right after the split. Since then, the newest members of Sock are Burnice, Lucy, and Lighter, in that order. Fun detail, the legacy members all have physical elements, and the newest are all fire. Okay, now for questions regarding Billy's backstory specifically. Events and details I gloss over will be expanded upon in the character section later. Anything about him before he was found is unknown, so it's not worth discussing. Reminder, this analysis is trying to be as accurate as it can be based on the information we know. When was Billy acquired? It could have been way before Caledon left. It could have been just after the split, since Sock would have needed a champion. We simply don't know enough to make an exact claim. Who acquired Billy? It's not explicitly stated. Based on what we know, I believe the most correct answer is Big Daddy and not Caledon. In Billy's lore video, Robot Rodeo, which by the way, really annoys me with how vague they make everything. I get it's supposed to be a teaser, but it's frustrating trying to provide details about events explained so vaguely. Anyway, in this video, we see Billy explain how he served a man with lofty ambitions and had a long talk with the people who were following my boss, and in the end, they decided to let me go. Now for this video specifically, I decided to check the original Chinese script and translate it multiple times to make sure what I was getting was accurate. The reason why is because this is the first lore video for the channel, so I wanted to make sure the script given is as close to the original as possible, and I'm glad I did. In Chinese, what he says is closer to, "I served a man with grand ideals," and "those who wanted to carry on his ideals had a long talk with me, and in the end they decided to set me free." Based on these statements, I don't believe it makes sense for Billy to be acquired by Caledon. I don't believe the writers would have Billy call Big Daddy, his boss for over the past decade, as simply someone who wanted to carry on Caledon's ideals. It makes way more sense if he meant Caesar, the newest leader of Sock, is carrying on Big Daddy's ideals. Of course, he doesn't mention names, and that's annoying, so this is subject to change. You could argue they've changed his story since the video came out in 2023, and it would have taken a while to produce and publish, but I won't do that. As for this image of Big Daddy on a horse, I think that's just a visual aesthetic, to show the kind of guy Big Daddy is and where he's from, since there are literally no horses in the outer ring, and we actually see it's a simple statue in the scene. Continuing on, Billy was given his jacket featuring a giant boar. I know this could just be a generic logo, or an older official logo for the gang. And yes, Caledon in Greek mythology is related to a giant boar. But Big Daddy has a jacket that oddly resembles Billy. On the back, his jacket has a fiery candle head holding 2 pistols, similarly to how Billy does in his poses, with his text saying Firehead. Now you could argue that it's just a jacket and it's supposed to represent himself, since everyone else has their own different jackets and logos. However, Big Daddy has shotgun shells, and in this datamine model we see it's shotguns that would be in his empty holsters and not pistols. While at best this is circumstantial, I think it's an odd coincidence that Billy's jacket resembles his boss while Big Daddy's resembles his champion, especially when he has the red scarf that lights on fire or whatever, because remember, that was Billy's scarf, and just as it lights up when Lighter does his punches, it should do the same for Billy. And finally, we never hear Billy mention Caledon, but he does leave with Piper to talk about Big Daddy. So, based on these conclusions, I am confident the best analysis of events is that Billy was acquired by Big Daddy sometime after Big Daddy took charge of the Caledonian biker gang and before the split. As for Billy's birthday on November 25th, I'm fine with that being the date Big Daddy bought and named him. Now to address the other topic, when was the split? Well, obviously after Caledon left, but how long after he left? I highly doubt it was the next day. Most people don't usually go, oh wow, our boss disappeared. Let's kill each other. That's not a rational thing to do. Additionally, Caledon left when Caesar was very young, probably a toddler, and the split happened while she was a kid. Now, is it possible that it was back to back? Sure, but I think that's unreasonable based on how Caesar says her age, and I'm pretty sure she would have mentioned that her dad left and she got her arm blown up the next day. So when did Billy leave SOC? If you watched some of those lore shorts, you would have been told that Billy left soon after the split. But that doesn't make any sense. If you believe that, then regardless of whether Caesar was a toddler or a kid when the split happened, she takes over the gang as an adult, meaning there's at least a decade of Billy leaving the gang and they don't have a champion during that time. Obviously, this should be against Motor League rules, unless of course you want to argue they had some unnamed, unknown champion that we never see, hear, or mention. And I don't know about you, but I usually don't keep in close contact with people who I haven't seen in 3 years, let alone a decade. So why and how is Billy on such good, friendly terms with SOC if he hasn't been around for a decade? It doesn't add up. The best, simplest explanation is that Billy left recently, and any other explanation claiming otherwise has to explain these missing pieces. Remember, Lighter was newly recruited to be the champion for the team. That only works if Billy asked if he could leave recently. Now, why did Billy leave? According to Billy, his home was destroyed and that left him aimless. Lighter confirms that Billy has overcome some past traumatic event similar to his own. I don't know what exact event this refers to. The simplest answer is the split, because that's the only one we know about. But that was a decade ago. Why would Billy stick to an aimless job for a decade? And Blazewood is still around, so it's not that. Whatever it is, Billy doesn't really want to talk about it, but mentions how he wants to move on from his past. It could have been because of the events of that day. Maybe something bad happened recently before he left. Or maybe he decided it was time to do something different, especially since Big Daddy had stepped down and Caesar took over. Alright, on to character relationships. This is the most important section. As with any good story, no matter how poorly the plot is written, it's all about family. And as long as their interactions are well written, that's what people really want to see. keeping this section of chairs brief because there's not too much relevance to his backstory, Ambi pulls a lot of the weight for the team, which is different from how Billy had to do most, if not all, the fighting for Sock. So he can afford to be even more relaxed than normal. The way I see it, this job is much more low stakes compared to his previous position. It's almost like he retired and he's doing this because he enjoys it. He's also cool with Nicole bossing him around, though he will get embarrassed if she yells at him. Now, on to Caesar and Big Daddy. I'm combining these two and you'll see why. Now work with me here. We are shifting perspectives from looking at historical events to understanding family and friendship dynamics. When Big Daddy takes over the gang, he also becomes Caesar's parental guardian with the goal to train her to be an even better leader than her father. Similarly, he finds Billy and gives him a name, like parents do to their babies, gives him his outfit, and gives him a purpose. Now stay with me on this. There is no specific line or event I can point to prove this for certain, but it makes the most sense from a world building and character writing perspective. Billy views Big Daddy as his father figure, and likewise views Caesar as his sister. Remember the scene where Billy calls Caesar Big Sis, and she calls him Little Bro? That's how siblings communicate with each other. Or at least that's how writers like to portray sibling dynamics when we first meet them. And Caesar never calls anyone else her bro. That means that when Billy was in action, he wasn't just defending the honor of the gang, he was defending his father and sister. Billy greatly trusts Caesar and Big Daddy and would be upset if he ever betrayed that trust. Maybe that's a hint to why the split was so hard for Billy, because he wasn't able to fully protect Caesar? It's very possible, but we don't know. Regardless, Caesar and Billy are very close, literally, since her left arm is one of Billy's spares. That's right, I haven't mentioned this the whole time on purpose. Billy gave his spare arm to Caesar to replace hers when it got blown off or whatever during the split. She even has it customized so she can hold her shield without actually having to hold her shield. That's a pretty special and important connection between these two. The arm also helps give Caesar her super strength, though we don't know her strength with and without the arm, so it's unquantifiable. But with it, she was able to lift rocks off the other kids her age. Caesar grew up seeing Billy in action as the champion, and even emulates him. Before she starts the fight when they meet in Chapter 4, she yells, "It's time to shine," and she has a similar voice line in combat when you swap to her. Oh hey, that's the line Billy uses regularly, because he's a Starlight Knights fanboy. It's almost like Caesar would have grown up hearing Billy, her champion and brother, say these lines right before he started walloping all the competition, which is why she says them too. After Big Daddy retired, Caesar took over as the leader, meaning she officially became the boss of Billy. But their relationship dynamic didn't really change, since they still call each other sis and bro. And even after Billy leaves, Caesar still refers to him as our champion, meaning Caesar still views her bro as a core member of SOC, despite his absence. Next up, Lighter. We are not exploring his backstory here, only the parts that relate to Billy. He is the newest member of SOC after Lucy, and was found by Big Daddy in the underground fighting ring. Big Daddy paid off his debts and asked him to join SOC as the champion, meaning this is after Billy has asked the gang if it's okay to leave. This is also after Big Daddy has retired, because Billy says he asked the people who were following my boss, or those who wanted to carry on his ideals. So keep in mind that Big Daddy did not just happen to stumble upon some random fighter and ask him to be the champion for SOC. He was searching for someone who would replace Billy, his son, to protect Caesar, his daughter. And yeah, even after retiring, Big Daddy is still actively involved with SOC, just not in any official capacity. He's basically checking up on his daughter and helping manage issues, which I'm sure Lucy appreciates because she could use the help. Upon accepting Big Daddy's request, Lighter was given Billy's iconic red scarf and became the new champion for SOC. Billy likely stuck around to show him the ropes for as long as he needed, just so Lighter is fully prepared to take on the position he's been given. We know this because after only seeing Billy fight one time, Leiter concludes that Billy is hiding his edge. This only makes sense if Leiter has seen Billy's edge to begin with. Leiter also says he views Billy as a rival he's been wanting to challenge for a while. So either they haven't had a true duel yet, or Leiter believes he now has the skills to beat Billy. Regardless, he greatly respects Billy and how he could move past his traumatic experience, while Leiter remains burdened by his. He also has some pretty big shoes to fill, since everything he's been given, including his scarf, the title of Red Scarf, and the role as the undefeated champion, is all because of Billy. That's literally Billy's legacy. Even in the art for the champion special play, we see Leiter and Billy standing back to back, but Billy is standing slightly above Leiter, as if the art is showing us that Leiter is still overshadowed by Billy and his reputation. As for Piper, Billy says in a trust event he used to live in a truck, and Piper is the only gang's trucker we currently know of. Piper is the current member who's been with Sock the longest, and Billy would have worked closely with her. There's no direct evidence to prove this, but in Chapter 4, we see Billy being comfortable driving a truck in the outer ring, likely because he had to do it as part of his job, especially if Piper was already driving a different truck. He and Piper likely drove together, and we even see Piper and Billy leave to reminisce about the good old days with Big Daddy. And now, Piper is even more tired because she has to do all the driving. Okay, I made that up, but you get what I mean. Piper and Billy are chill. If you don't include Kid Caesar, these two are the only Sock members we know of who were around after the split, the gang's lowest point. Lucy and Burnice don't really have anything connected to Billy. They would obviously know about him. There's just nothing mentioned that connects them. For Lucy, she was basically in charge of managing Leiter, since Caesar would do all the fighting anyway. So at best, you could say she had the same issue finding work for Billy. This is completely unconfirmed, but I wanted to bring it up because that might be part of the reason Billy asked to leave recently. We don't really know. Burnice doesn't really have a backstory or lore relevancy, and that's okay. The point of her story is to be the cheerful side character who just wants to have a good time, and she does that well. Okay, this is the final stretch. After analyzing all the currently available information, the following is a Billy timeline to the start of the prologue. It's actually not that difficult, since we can use Caesar's age as our scale. Remember, we don't need to hit a bullseye, I'm just trying to get in the right ballpark. Caesar is a toddler when Caledon disappears, anywhere between 2 to 5 years old. You could easily argue that he's gone by the time of her teaser, Desert Melody, but there's not decisive proof, since Caledon could have just been working while Big Daddy was basically babysitting. The split happens when Caesar is 7 to 12 years old. The reason for this is, 1. Caesar calls herself a kid when it happened, but very young when her dad left, so that likely means a time jump. 2. Caesar has to be old enough to use Billy's spare metal arm. And 3. I doubt there are any outer ring engineers who could properly size down Billy's arm to fit someone younger than 7 and then continue to resize it if she hasn't gone through puberty. You could argue she was closer to 15. I would argue that based on her wording she was closer to 10. We know Caesar is around the same age as the proxy, which is early to mid-20s, since the proxies go to get their license renewed before Chapter 3, and in China, remember this is a game made by Chinese devs set in a Chinese urban environment, licenses expire after 6 years, and you can't operate a car or business until you are 18, so around 24 years old. However, in one commission for the Overlord's Feast, this NPC Jason comments that Belle looks way younger than 23, so I have to include early 20s. And finally, Leiter was recently recruited to replace Billy, so Billy was still part of the team while Leiter joined, and it took Leiter a while to see the other members as his new family. And Burnice thought for the longest time that Leiter was just here to do odd jobs, since Caesar was doing all the fighting herself. With this in mind, it makes sense that Billy has left Sock 6 to 18 months ago. Any longer doesn't make sense. Billy is still on good terms with Sock and keeps up with them regularly, and Lighter still views himself as the newbie of the team, something he would have grown out of if he's been with the team for 2+ years. This is also Caesar's first Tour de Inferno as the leader, which takes place every few years. Similarly, any shorter doesn't make any sense. Billy needs to have time to meet and become familiar with Ambi and Nicole. And funny enough, Caesar needs time to learn how to play the piano before the Tour de Inferno, as we see in her video. As a result, Billy has spent around 15 years as the champion, and I would personally guess for even longer. Alright, that's about it. All the serious stuff is out of the way. Now we can have a bit more fun. Let's do some simple power scaling. How strong is Billy?
I was born ready! Never mind.
Well, he's not stronger than Miyabi. She's number 1 and it's not even close, so it's not worth discussing. At worst, you have to agree that he is equivalent to Lighter. I'll present 3 claims and back them up. Again, these are not based on how I feel, these are claims based on the writing and animations presented to us. You are more than welcome to disagree, but I ask you substantiate your position with more than just a, I don't think so. I want you to defend your reasoning, because I'm trying to be as honest as possible while understanding there is room for interpretation. I will be assuming that Billy is fighting semi-seriously, but in character. So he's not bloodthirsty, but also not casual the whole time, or worried about having to spend money on ammo. Some short explanations of Billy's power based on what we've seen. We do not have a cutscene of a serious Billy going all out, so at best we have to rely on his in-combat animations. I am comfortable in saying that Billy's arsenal has always been just his 2 pistols until we see proof otherwise. Billy has to reload his pistols, but we never actually see it in-game. The obvious answer is because that would take away from the gameplay experience, and the funny answer is because Billy is so fast that he can reload without us seeing it. Similar to how Miyabi uses her sword. It's probably a little bit of both. We know Billy is worried about wasting ammo, and you could say it's a gag because Chairs is so broke he needs to be stingy with it. In Chapter 3, Billy claims he is actually tougher than when he left Sock, and Caesar and Lighter do not comment against this, although Lighter does sigh. You could argue that Billy was lying, or just setting up a joke about how Nicole no longer punches him. I choose to believe Billy isn't lying to his sister, the one who grew up seeing him in action and knows what he is capable of, and Lighter, his replacement, who is also fully aware of what he is capable of. These are the 2 worst people he could choose to lie to about his power, save for Big Daddy. Additionally, Billy is clearly not worried, and only becomes concerned once the proxy passes out. When Caesar and Lighter show up, Caesar says Billy would have been chopped to bits by the Ethereals, and Billy playfully says, "Nah, I would have been fine." So we know Billy doesn't think he was in a bad situation. And based on his work experience, Billy knows when he's in one. He does convince Ambi in the prologue that they should run because they don't have enough firepower for a long fight. When Billy is psyching himself up to fight the Dead-End Butcher, he almost takes a big hit, but that's literally because his spear was sent flying from the heavens and Billy was off guard. He probably would have been badly damaged, and arguably dead. He actually looks less concerned about being hit and more embarrassed about being yelled at by Nicole. If Billy hadn't distracted himself, he could have dodged it easily, since Ambi has time to move in front of him and parry it, and Nicole actually reaches Billy in the same time, and Billy is way faster than Nicole, as I'll show later. Claim number 1. Billy is stronger than Lighter. I can comfortably prove this in the next claim, but we'll start simple. Lighter without his gauntlet is obviously not stronger, so that's not worth discussing. Lighter's gauntlet was made by Sock specifically so he could be an effective champion. Using this, he can punch super hard, and if you are inclined to believe his animations, as I am to a degree, he can punch super fast. Of course, there's room to debate how fast. Do you believe he's so fast and strong? He's punching like 4 times a second with an engine on his arm? You could argue the speed is all because of the gauntlet, but Lighter still has to pull back his arm to punch again. which means he is still fast without it. Regardless, Lighter sees Billy as a rival to beat, which means at worst, Lighter believes he could be a good match for Billy, who only uses 2 pistols. Yeah, they are high caliber pistols, but they don't make him faster, and I'll show that later. Claim number 2. Billy is stronger than Caesar. Before I hear it, yes, she is super strong and awesome. I like her a lot and I'm not downplaying her. So follow me on this. The writing makes it pretty obvious that Caesar is stronger than Lighter. And just a reminder, being the champion of the gang means that you are the strongest fighter who is not the leader. This is not up for interpretation. For the safety of the gang, the champion is always the strongest. In her entire time growing up in SOC, Caesar has never been the champion. So guess what? That means she's never been stronger than Billy. I know many people will disagree with this, but the story points to this, unless you are able to provide evidence for an argument that Caesar gained significant power in her time since becoming the leader. Or maybe that she was never part of the gang until she became the leader. Now the best argument against this is that Big Daddy was always training Caesar to be the leader, so he wouldn't let her be the champion, which is more dangerous. That's actually not bad, except when we first see Caesar in Chapter 4, she's literally beating up other gangs, which is Lighter's job, and Big Daddy is watching. He does not tell her to stop. He does not warn her about keeping herself safe. He says go have fun. Additionally, we know Big Daddy personally trained Caesar to use her custom sword and shield, so he wants her to be strong. Some, or most, of her strength could be attributed to her prosthetic arm. Guess whose entire body is made up of that arm? Oh, that's right, it's Billy. It's literally a backup part for Billy. If Caesar were stronger than Billy, she would have become the champion. She never does. So Billy has to be stronger, based on the title and qualifications to be the champion. It's that simple. Claim number 3. Billy is stronger than Yanagi. This is the hardest one to substantiate, and I don't fully believe this argument, but it's fun to talk about. Discussions around a lore power tier list usually have Yanagi in second place, and her greatest feat is using her temporal time slowdown power, whatever it actually is or how it works, to outspeed a nerfed Miyabi in VR. Reminder that Yanagi doesn't beat Miyabi, she simply runs past her, and she pushed herself way beyond her physical limits, so she couldn't pull off what she did in reality. In her combat animations, we see that she can turn into electricity. I think this is just for a cool visual effect, and teleport to the other side of enemies to continue hitting them. And when we see she goes into the air and slam down again, we see her after images. So don't get me wrong, Yanagi can make herself pretty fast. However, I have not mentioned this detail up until now on purpose, but guess how fast Billy is. Take your time. Alright, now look at this.
It's showtime!
He is casually teleporting around the arena. He is moving so fast, we are seeing after images of him dashing around in an area, not one straight line. And not only that, if you are one of those people who believe that Billy isn't actually that strong because we never see him serious, that's not downplaying him. That means you believe he's even better than this, right? The guy who's moving around so fast you can barely see him, using pistols that he has to reload, or based on gameplay, infinite ammo. Yeah, you're saying this is him being casual, that he's barely trying. So assuming Billy and Yanagi's combat animations are similar to how they actually perform, let's ask ourselves, who is better? Do we pick the fighter who can periodically slow down time in short bursts? Or the one who can move so fast he's casually teleporting around the battlefield? Now of course there's a scene where Billy and Ambi tell Section 6 to back up, and while it's a cool scene, it doesn't really prove anything substantial, other than this isn't Billy's first rodeo. But if it was a one-on-one fight, then yeah, I'm willing to bet Billy can take down everyone in Section 6, whose name doesn't rhyme with Punjabi. That's it. Thank you for watching or reading. This was really fun to make, and I hope that you leave knowing something you didn't before. Shoutouts to the Billy Discord for being chill, and for early Billy mains convincing me that he wasn't low tier like many sites and people said he was at launch. If you would like to see some cool Billy gameplay, I've made a few videos, but I would also recommend you explore around on YouTube. There are many players big and small worth watching. Leave your comments below and longer discussions for the Reddit post. Thanks again, Starlight Knights. I hope you have a pleasant day.